Chairman, Ranking Member, and distinguished members of the committee, thank you for giving me the opportunity to testify today on this very important subject. I am Dr. Carol M. Swain, a former tenured professor of political science and law at Vanderbilt, and I was also tenured at Princeton. I am a woman who rose from rural poverty in Southwest Virginia, earned 5 degrees, and built a career as a scholar of race, politics, and representation. My 1993 book, Black Faces, Black Interests, won 3 national awards and was cited by the U.S. Supreme Court. Yet, starting in 2009, I became the target of a sustained smear campaign by the Southern Poverty Law Center, an organization once respected for fighting real hate, but which I believe has become a weapon against conservatives, Christians, and dissenting voices. In September 2009, I found myself in the SPLC's crosshairs after I published an article in the Huffington Post titled "Mission Creep and the Southern Poverty Law Center's Misguided Focus." I argued that the SPLC had drifted from its original mission of monitoring genuine hate groups, such as the KKK and the neo-Nazis, towards targeting mainstream conservatives, immigration reformers, and anyone challenging progressive ideas on race and immigration. I specifically criticized the SPLC's attacks on figures like Lou Dobbs and organizations like the Center for Immigration Studies. I concluded my article with the line, "Rather than monitoring hate groups, the Southern Poverty Law Center has become one." Within weeks of my article, the Southern Poverty Law Center retaliated. In October 2009, SPLC spokesman Mark Potok publicly labeled me as an apologist for white supremacists. This stemmed from my endorsement of a documentary film, A Conversation About Race, directed by Craig Bodecker, which I recommended for classroom use because it offered perspectives rarely heard on university campuses. This attack on me was not an isolated incident. The Southern Poverty Law Center has used guilt by association, cherry-picked quotes, and fabrications to damage and destroy reputations and organizations. There was long-term professional harm to me. Offers from other universities dried up. Speaking opportunities declined. I became kryptonite in certain academic and media circles. My experiences with the Southern Poverty Law Center exposed a powerful, tax-exempt organization with enormous influence over media, corporations, law enforcement, and government that can chill speech and academic freedom without any meaningful accountability. The Southern Poverty Law Center's tactics, the mission creep because it's lost sight of its original purpose, guilt by association, weaponized hate labels have broader consequences. They distort public discourse and equate policy disagreements with bigotry. They influence tech companies, public and private schools, and federal agencies in ways that marginalize conservative and religious voices. Their smear tactics undermine individuals and organizations that are fighting for the public good. I urge this committee to examine the Southern Poverty Law Center's practices, its financial operations, its influence on government partnerships, and the lack of transparency and accountability surrounding its hate group designation. Real civil rights work requires truth-telling, not retaliation against scholars who challenge orthodoxies, and certainly not the alleged financing of the hate the organization claims to fight. I hope Congress will deal with the Southern Poverty Law Center appropriately. Both political parties need to address this. This is a bipartisan issue. They should use all available means to hold this organization accountable as you do, or as you proclaim to do with other organizations. Let's hold everyone to the same standard. Thank you for your time, and I will be ready to answer questions at the appropriate time.
Thank you, Doctor. Mr. Perkins, you are now recognized for 5 minutes.
Chairman Jordan, Ranking Member Raskin, members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to testify. I'm Tony Perkins. I've served as the president of the Family Research Council here in Washington since 2003. Americans once associated Southern Poverty Law Center with fighting the Ku Klux Klan during the Civil Rights era. And that reputation gave the SPLC enormous moral credibility. But in November of 2010, SPLC shifted its focus beyond violent groups and began targeting Christian organizations opposing efforts to redefine marriage and human sexuality. Family Research Council was among the most prominent of that first wave. In August of 2012, FRC joined Governor Mike Huckabee in supporting Chick-fil-A Appreciation Day after the company was boycotted because its leadership publicly affirmed traditional marriage. 2 weeks later, on August 15th, LGBT activist Floyd Corkins entered FRC headquarters carrying a 9mm pistol, 50 rounds of ammunition, and 15 Chick-fil-A sandwiches. According to his later confession, his intent was to kill as many as possible and stuff the sandwiches into our mouths. As he entered the building and pulled the gun out of his backpack, our building manager, Leo Johnson, confronted him. Though seriously wounded, Leo stopped the attacker and prevented a mass casualty event. After multiple surgeries and months of rehabilitation, Leo returned to work and remains today affectionately known as Leo the Hero, and he's here with us today. Leo, thank you. The following day, investigators confirmed Corkins confessed to selecting FRC because of SPLC's website and hate map. Following the attack, FRC appealed publicly, privately, to SPLC to remove mainstream Christian organizations from its inflammatory classifications. Those requests were rejected. The attack has cost FRC more than $6 million in security-related costs. But the costs extend way beyond one act of violence. SPLC's intelligence project and associated labels became deeply influential on banks, payment processors, and technology companies increasingly relied on SPLC classifications to decide which organizations could maintain accounts, process transactions, and operate online. Around 2016, the SPLC began pressuring financial corporations and technology companies to deplatform and defund organizations that it labeled extremist. Then came Charlottesville. According to the recent federal indictment, a member of the online leadership that planned Unite the Right rally at the direction of the SPLC and helped coordinate transportation for attendees was bankrolled by SPLC. Charlottesville, don't miss this, Charlottesville was a catalytic event for SPLC. As major corporations like Apple, JP Morgan Chase aligned with SPLC, contributing millions of dollars. Shortly afterwards, the coalition known as Change the Terms was formed, led by SPLC and the Center for American Progress, establishing standards that would encourage companies to deny digital access and financial infrastructure to organizations that SPLC labeled. The timeline of Change the Terms closely parallels the acceleration of the efforts to debank and deplatform conservatives. FRC experienced this from Truist Financial, BB&T, Fidelity Investments, GuideStar, Mobile Calls, and other technology-related companies. And SPLC officials openly acknowledged this strategy before Congress. In January of 2020, SPLC official Lakeisha Brooks stated this, quote, "We have lobbied internet companies one by one. A key part of this strategy has been to target these organizations' funding." Brooks continued to describe the coordinated effort to pressure technology companies and financial institutions to restrict access for organizations SPLC opposed. This committee, the issue before this committee, is larger than SPLC fraud. SPLC was the hub but there are many spokes that made up this wheel designed to crush Christians and conservatives. The congressional inquiry should not stop with SPLC. In America, citizens should not lose banking services, digital platforms, public credibility, and a sense of safety because they believe in biblical marriage and sexuality. When government-related or regulated institutions can apply ideological labels in a coordinated fashion to silence, isolate, and financially cripple opponents, we have political targeting by proxy, and freedom is at risk.
Thank you, Mr. Perkins, for that testimony. Leo the Hero, thank you for your courage. We'll now go to Mr. O'Neill.
Chairman Jordan, Ranking Member Raskin, members of the committee, I'm honored to testify before you today. I will argue that the Southern Poverty Law Center does not merely track hate, it systematically inflates it, profits from it, and, according to a federal indictment, may even have helped create it. The first thing to know about the SPLC is that it has nothing to do with poverty. The Poverty Palace has an endowment, has assets of $822 million. That's more than 3 times the assets of the National YMCA and almost twice the sum of Planned Parenthood. That's why former employees have suggested mocking mottos for the SPLC, such as making hate pay. How did the SPLC become so wealthy? Co-founder Morris Dees set up a lucrative fundraising engine by suing the Ku Klux Klan into bankruptcy. When the SPLC ran out of grand dragons to slay, the center needed to find more hate to justify the fundraising. It has a financial incentive to juice the numbers. The SPLC began to publish a hate map that plots mainstream conservative and Christian groups alongside Klan chapters. The map includes Moms for Liberty, PragerU, Turning Point USA, and even Focus on the Family. The SPLC says the map reveals the infrastructure upholding white supremacy. This hate map kills 2 birds with 1 stone. It silences conservative dissent from the left's and the SPLC's agenda, and it exaggerates hate to keep the money flowing. The map also includes groups that barely exist, like a Confederate memorabilia shop and a convent. In 2023, I analyzed the map and found that it exaggerated hate by at least 267%. By including mainstream conservatives, double counting groups, and mentioning defunct organizations. Given this track record, is it really so far-fetched to think the SPLC might be propping up some of the very white supremacist groups it claims it exists to oppose? A federal grand jury indicted the SPLC on fraud charges because it had funneled $3 million to members of the Klan. The SPLC didn't deny the payments, but said it was funding informants who had tipped the center off to violent threats before they happened. But that's not what allegedly happened in Charlottesville in 2017. According to the indictment, the SPLC paid an organizer and directed this person's racist postings. The indictment suggests the SPLC's involvement made Charlottesville larger than it otherwise would have been. After Charlottesville, the SPLC's annual fundraising doubled. Social media companies volunteered to start silencing hate groups. CNN plastered the hate map on its website. Charlottesville was a payday for the SPLC. And this so-called informant may have been the SPLC's most cunning investment. Of course, if it became known that the SPLC had paid a Charlottesville organizer, that would be a massive scandal. No wonder the SPLC allegedly lied to a bank, setting up shell companies to fund these informants. Why does this matter? SPLC staff have briefed DOJ prosecutors. Big tech companies have used the SPLC to blacklist conservative nonprofits. School districts across the country have adopted the SPLC's curriculum. Hundreds of companies systematically exclude conservatives from their charity programs because of the SPLC. The SPLC also have offshoots that engage in similar efforts against conservatives. The Change the Terms Coalition banded together to pressure big tech to deplatform conservatives, and former SPLC staff have founded the Global Project Against Hate and Extremism. If an organization can inflate threats, influence federal policy, and conceal its role in allegedly fueling the very extremism it condemns, then Congress has a duty to investigate it and its offshoots.